Hi everyone, it's Sandy and today I'm doing my July wrap-up. In the month of July, I read 19 books. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. But if you want to get all technical here, I read 17 books, 1 graphic novel, and 2 novellas, but the 2 novellas are in like a bind-up copy, so it's kind of one book. And the graphic novel is still a book, so I'm still counting it as 19 books total. The first book I read in the month of July is a book for school, so it's not that interesting, but I'm going to show it anyways, and that is A History of Six Glasses by Tom Standage. I didn't give this book a rating because it's more informational rather than like a story. The next book is nearly 600 pages, and it is The Diviners by Libba Bray. And to be honest, I regret reading this book. I did not like this book at all. I would give this book a 1 out of 5 stars. And I rarely ever give books less than 3 stars, and this is one of them. In this book, the main character Evie gets sent to New York City to live with her uncle. In New York, there are serial killings that is occurring, and her uncle is kind of helping out trying to solve the mystery, and Evie gets involved too. And there's like supernatural powers involved, and I really like that aspect of this book. This book was just very slow, and I couldn't get into it. I really like the 1920s feel to it, but I wasn't a big fan of the characters. This book is told in so many perspectives. I believe that there's more than 15, and I just did not like the way it was written at all. The next book I read is Fire and Flood by Victoria Scott. I actually did a book review on this book, so I'm going to link it down below if you want to check it out. But briefly, this book is about a girl named Tella who competes in the Brimstone Bleeds, which is sort of like the Hunger Games, but it's not at the same time. It did feel a bit like the Hunger Games at first, but then it loses the Hunger Games feel to it. And I really like the characters and I love the plot. Some people have described this book as kind of like Pokemon, and I can see why, because in this book there are Pandoras, and Pandoras hatched by eggs, and Pandoras can be like whatever type of animal. They can be lions, a hawk, an eagle, something like that, a raccoon, but except these Pandoras have kind of like a special ability, like one can breathe fire. And overall, I really enjoyed this book. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. In the month of July, I read a lot of contemporary books, so you're going to see a lot of contemporary books in this wrap-up. The first contemporary book I read is Since You've Been Gone by Morgan Matson, and this book is one of my favorite contemporary books of all time. I'm in love with this book. I love it so much. I'm planning to do kind of like a contemporary mashup review. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, but I'm planning to, and this book is definitely one of the books I plan on doing a review on. But for now, I'm just going to give my brief thoughts on it. This book is about a girl named Emily who has a best friend named Sloane. Sloane randomly disappears one day, and Emily has no idea where she is, but Sloane leaves a list for Emily to do, and on the back of this book it has all the lists. Like one of them is kissing a stranger, another is go skinny dipping. And throughout this book, Emily is completing this list. I loved seeing Emily break out of her shell, going on these adventures, meeting new friends. Emily was just such a relatable character. She doesn't like putting herself out there, but as this book goes on, you can see Emily's character development, and I really love that. I really love the romance in this book. It's very slow, and I loved it because it's not insta-love, and I hate insta-love so much. And I love seeing them get to know one another. If you want to read a contemporary book, I highly recommend Since You've Been Gone. It's a perfect summary. I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. If I could give it all the stars, I would. But since I can't, 5 out of 5 stars. The next book is Branded by Abby Kettner and Missy Kalasicki. I'm not sure how to say her last name, but I read this book on Kindle for Bookbusters. If you don't know what Bookbusters is, I'm part of a book club where we read a book every month and we do a live show on it. In Branded, if you commit one of the 7 deadly sins, you'll get branded for it and you'll be sent to the hole. There's a lot of horrible things that goes on in the hole, and the main character Lexi gets branded for lust. So she is sent to the hole, and she is assigned a personal bodyguard named Cole. Now obviously Lexi and Cole are going to fall in love, but I was not a big fan of the romance between Lexi and Cole. The romance between Lexi and Cole started out very gradual, and then all of a sudden, bam, it comes out of nowhere and they're kissing. I really love the premise of Branded, and overall I would give Branded a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read is My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick. The main character, Samantha, lives next door to the Garrett family, and the Garrett family has a really big family, so they have lots of children running around. Samantha meets a boy named Jace. That's right, Jace, but spelled with an S instead of a C. I personally thought that the romance wasn't that interesting. I still enjoyed the book, and there was a lot of interesting characters, especially in the Garrett household. But I didn't really experience any of the like OMG, all the feels type of feeling. The next book I read is Losing Hope by Colleen Hoover. This is the companion novel to Hopeless, and I absolutely loved Hopeless. I really liked reading this. I loved reading in Holder's perspective. I learned a lot more about him. In this book, Holder writes letters to his sister, and I really liked reading those letters because it kind of shows what Holder is going through. While I was reading this, like all these memories of me reading Hopeless came back to me, and it made me realize why I loved Hopeless so much. And I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read The Selection Stories by Kiera Cass, and these are the 2 novellas, The Prince and the Guard. I thought these were okay. I would give them a 3 out of 5 stars. That's what I normally rate novellas. The next 8 books are books that I read during Booktubeathon. I did a full Booktubeathon wrap-up, so I won't be going into the book, but I'll show you what the books are and what I would rate it. The first book is Saga Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. I would give this book 4 out of 5 stars. Next is Grave Mercy, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. Then I read the entire Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy by Jenny Han, which consists of The Summer I Turned Pretty, It's Not Summer Without You, and We'll Always Have Summer. I gave the first book 2 out of 5 stars. The second book 3 out of 5 stars, and the last book 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Then I read The Duff by Cody Keplinger, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book I read for Booktubeathon was On Dublin Street by Samantha Young, and I would give this a 4 or 4.5 stars. So the first book I read after Booktubeathon was Half Bad by Sally Green. So in this world, there are white witches and black witches, and technically white witches are supposed to be the good witches, and black witches are the evil witches. And Nathan, our main character, is half white and half black. His dad is a black witch and his mom was a white witch. And Nathan is, I believe, called a half code because he's half and half. And half codes are really hated. There's so much regulations and restrictions against them. About halfway through this book, I kind of lost interest in the story, and I was just reading it to get it over with. But I still did enjoy the story, and I really liked the way it was written. The chapters were really short. The beginning of the book was written like second POV, and I really liked that because it's really different. So I would give this book a 3 out of 5 stars. The second to last book that I read in the month of July is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. Everyone who has read this book and talks about it says to not give a summary or like talk about what this book is about, so I'm not going to do that. I really do think you should go into this book with no expectation. Ignore all the hype about it and just read it without knowing what it's going to be about. I don't want to say much about this book because I don't want to like kind of spoil it, even if it's a like really minor detail that I liked about it or what I didn't like. I feel like it would be a spoiler. I still have a lot of questions about this book, which I'm not going to ask because those are kind of like spoiler questions. So yeah, overall, I would give this book a 3 out of 5 stars. And the very last book that I read in the month of July is 4 by Veronica Roth, and I would give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Did you see what I did there? Anyways, I really liked reading in For's perspective, and I really liked hearing about his background story before he met Tris, and then reading some scenes in Divergent that was originally told in Tris's perspective, but in For's perspective. I wasn't a big fan of For's POV in Allegiant, but I really liked this book. Reading this book makes me want to reread the entire Divergent trilogy, which I hope to do that one day, but just not now. So that is all for my July wrap-up. Sorry for this really lengthy video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What books did you read in the month of July? Thanks for watching. Bye!